evening. It's still Monday the 10th of October. Crack on with a quick one before my wife gives birth, whenever that's going to happen. So this sample, which was acquired from, and it was acquired legally before you start, but yes, I picked up a wee snifter of this from the lovely chaps at the Whisky Lounge. So Joe, Eddie, Amanda, all the other people, thank you very, very much for your generosity, even though you might not have known about it. And this one is Powers, but it's Powers Signature. Now, if you've come across Powers Irish Whiskey before, you're probably used to seeing this one, which is Powers Gold Label. Which is a blended Irish whiskey, combination of single malt and grain whiskey, and pot still as well. And it's named after a gentleman called James Power, who was an innkeeper in Dublin. And in 1791, he opened a distillery in St John's Lane in Dublin, which is here. And in 1821, so 30 years later, his son John joined the business, and somehow, obviously father loved son quite a lot, because the business then became known as John Power and Sons. So John Power became quite a figure within Dublin and Ireland as a kind of whiskey distiller and businessman and general all-round top bloke. He was knighted in 1841, and he later became the High Sheriff of Dublin. Now, they were one of the first distilleries to actually start bottling whiskey as well, and they started in 1826. What was happening previously was they would sell to wholesalers in casks, and they would either kind of bottle it up there and then, or sell a cask to distributors who would then bottle it up themselves. Now, there was no way of being able to guarantee the quality that you were then passing on to the customers that were buying it from them. By bottling it yourselves, you could guarantee that what you were giving your customers and your suppliers was what you wanted them to have, rather than it being mixed or cut down with water or anything like that. So when they started bottling in 1826, that was when they first launched Powers Gold Label, which is the blended whiskey that you will see in most places that sells Powers. So the distillery was rebuilt in 1871 and kind of refurbished and expanded, and it remained in the Powers family until 1966, when they joined forces with Cork Distillers and John Jameson's and Sons, and formed Irish Distillers. And as part of that process, all the operations and distilling and everything moved down to the Middleton Distillery, which is here in Cork, in 1975. And now there's a bit of a difference in communication, because if you read up on the Middleton Distillery, it says that it was 1975, and it was literally all the distillers, all the workmen, women, men, all the people working at distilleries in the various parts, literally shut everything down one day, went down to Cork and started going. But if you go to the Powers website, they say that they actually carried on distilling for another year after operations transferred to Middleton, as a kind of insurance policy to make sure that actually everything was working and nothing was going to go wrong or anything like that, and then transferred everything down. Now, Pernod Ricard purchased Irish Distillers in 1989, and it remains with them now. Powers Gold Label remained basically the one brand of Powers until 2011, when they launched a Powers St John's Lane as a single pot still. And then the Signature, which I think was about 2 years ago, so we're looking at about 2014, was another release, again as a single pot still, which is matured mostly with bourbon casks, but there's also some Oloroso sherry, first fill Oloroso sherry casks used in some of the maturation as well. Now, it's not got an age statement on, should point out. That's what the bottle looks like, and you're looking at Whisky Exchange is selling this for 51 quid, Master of Malt are selling it for 48. It's a combination of 7, 8 and 9 year olds, if not some slightly older stuff, but that seems to be the majority of the whiskey that's in there. So it's not limited edition, but considering the age, you've got to look at the price and go, well, is that about right? Looking at what things like, say, Redbreast are and things, but this is more of a limited edition. This is more of a premium whiskey. So I'm looking forward to this. I suppose, strictly speaking, I should have had the Powers Gold Label, because that is the standard bottling, and that's what I've been trying to do throughout the entire challenge was try to have what you would consider the standard bottling of each range, but I've got to go with what I can get my hands on, and at the time they had Power Signature. Now, I was originally going to have this earlier on in my Irish run because I thought this was a blend, but then it turns out when I did my reading up, oh crap, it's a pot still. Right, I better actually push this towards the end of the challenge when I'm doing my pot stills. After this, I think I've got 2 left. Yes, I've got 2 left of my Irish run after this one. I've got this, then Writer's Tears, which is a single pot still, and then I've saved Redbreast 12-year-old cask strength as the last one. I love Redbreast. I haven't had the cask strength, so I thought I'd save that as the last one. So yes, quite looking forward to this. Now, colour-wise, it's a pretty good colour actually, and you can sort of tell, providing they've not added any colour, that we've got some bourbon and sherry maturation in here. It's a bit of a more of an amber colour. It's a bit darker than say the Green Northern I've just had. So yeah, I'm hoping that is natural colour, and that is a good indication of what we can expect. So pot still, look forward to me saying blackcurrant starbursts, because to me that's what pot still brings every single time. A juicy blackcurrantiness. Reminds me of starburst, opal fruits, whatever you want to call them, but that type of juicy blackcurrant sweet. And it's there on the nose. I will say it every single time I have a pot still Irish whiskey. It's blackcurrants to me. It's more than anything else. It's blackcurrant. All right, I'm not going to say starburst this time. I'm going to say when you get your cubes of jelly. So like Roundtree's blackcurrant jelly, when you get it out the pack before you've added any water to it, and it's that really concentrated blackcurrant jelly, and it's got that smell where it's sweet and it's juicy, and it's absolutely that. Now there is some more sweetness in here though. There is that, I'm going to say that's that sherry sweetness, and there's bourbon influence in this, but it's not quite working so well with the sherry and the juiciness. So you get the juiciness of the pot still, but then this bourbon-y element comes in where it's a bit more of a darker fruit and a bit more of a darker fruit cake, and it doesn't quite work with the blackcurrant juiciness, blackcurrant jelly of the pot still. Because when you get dark fruit cake, you get raisins and sultanas and plums and damsons and that sort of stuff. You don't get blackcurrants in fruit cake because it doesn't really go, and this just is slightly off kilter. Yeah. All right, but let's see what the palate's like. Ooh, that's got a kick. 46%. And I'd have almost said that slightly more. There is a definite bite of alcohol on that. I'm not going to add any water to it because I don't think it needs it, but it's not that it masks it, but it just caught me off guard a little bit, and it kind of masks some of the flavours in there because I was going, oh, hang on, there's alcohol in this. There's good fruitiness to it though. There's a really, really nice sherry element to this. Yeah, that's better. The heat from the alcohol actually works really well. And there's a lovely sultana feel to it. Not raisins, sultanas, slightly softer. And there's a really interesting, it's like pot still and sherry whiskey and bourbon matured whiskies are you're kind of bouncing back between the three of them. It really is, they're not really fighting, but you can almost pinpoint the three separate elements within the whiskey. They don't really merge, that's the only problem. It's the only thing that I'd probably say with it is they're quite individual. It feels like I've got three different sections in my mouth that are tasting three different types of whiskey, but they're not really kind of melding together because they're quite distinct styles. It's good, but I'm not sure if I'm really going for this because I'm getting a different thing every time, but it's not flowing into each other. It's not like a multitude of flavors that are dancing around each other. It's like, have bourbon, have pot still, have sherry whiskey, have pot still, have bourbon, and it's a little bit disjointed. It's interesting though. I'm trying to tell what I get more of. Do I get more bourbon influence? The pot still's kind of coming third out the three. There's quite a bourbony influence, and then some sherry influence comes in, and I'm not really getting the juiciness of the classic pot still that I do on the nose. But even then, more bourbon character comes through. You could probably put this on a blind tasting, and quite a few people would think this bourbon more than anything else. But again, this sherry element comes through. The pot still sort of lingers in the background, and I like that in Irish whiskey, and I wish there was a bit more of that. It's almost like first fill bourbon and first fill sherry is too much, it's too influential. It's actually overpowering the character of the classic Irish whiskey that kind of is underneath. It's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a, no, it's not even a mess. It's just a bit muddled. It's a little bit kind of confused, and I wish it married better, because I think there's almost something absolutely fantastic that would rock my world, and it just doesn't quite have it in the right way. It's worth trying though. I don't know whether 50 quid's a fair price for it though. That feels a little bit steep for me, considering what else there is on the market, even in terms of Irish whiskies. Feels a little bit on the expensive side, but it's worth trying, definitely. It's very, very unusual. It'd be interesting for other people to try it and see if you can pick up those pockets of bourbon and sherry and pot still, and it might work better for you than it does for me. It's just a little bit disjointed, and it's not bad. I'm trying very hard not to kind of dismiss it, because I think it's interesting. It's just not quite there for me. It's not quite working for my taste buds, but it may well do for you. Right, okay, that's us done. I shall see you at the next one. Cheers.